Okay, let's talk about how to unlearn over desire. So if you remember, I just said we have a human brain and we have an animal brain. We have this lower brain and this higher brain. And what that means is that the opportunities here are endless. And so I want to teach you how to start to access that part of your brain. We're going to talk about how to unlearn all this over desire in your lower brain by using your higher brain to unlearn it. So if you heard my free class, and I also talk about this on my podcast occasionally, you'll have heard me use this example of Pavlov's dogs. This is really important to understand. So I'm going to go through it again. So Pavlov was a scientist who trained his dogs to salivate at the sound of the bell. And so what he did is he would bring them some food, bring them a treat, and ring a bell. And ring a bell, bring them a treat, ring a bell, bring them a treat, over and over and over and over again. And pretty soon these dogs started to associate this sound of the bell with the treat. So they would hear the bell, ding, 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 and they would immediately start to salivate even if they didn't have a treat yet. They started to associate that sound of the bell with getting a treat. This is like us with our pornography habit. We have certain bells and certain triggers where we just have urges that seem to come out of nowhere. We can't control, they just pop up. And that's because you've trained yourself to, look at pornography with certain emotions or at certain times of days. It's the same thing. You've trained yourself to associate certain things with getting the dopamine hit of pornography. It's the same with sugar, right? I always want sugar after I eat a meal. And it's because for years I have given myself a treat after eating dinner and like a little something sweet. And now I eat dinner and I immediately have these cravings. It's because that's what I trained myself to do. Now, the important part of this experiment with Pavlov and his dogs is that he was able to train his dogs to not salivate at the sound of the bell. And this is really important. And it's really simple. All he did was he rang the bell and didn't give him the treat. Rang the bell and didn't give him the treat. Over and over and over again. And then eventually the dogs started to learn, hey, this sound of the bell, we're not associating that with food anymore, so they don't salivate anymore. It's important to notice that the dogs, when they started hearing this bell and were disassociating themselves from this salivation response, it was really miserable for them. And they're barking and they're upset and they're angry and they're like, what the heck? I'm hearing this bell. Why am I not getting this treat? Why am I not getting this reward? So it was kind of miserable. They had to go through this period of it just being miserable while they were deconditioning themselves from this salivation response. If Pavlov would have just thrown the dogs on an island for a couple of years where they didn't hear the bell, they would have come back a couple years later, heard the bell, and still associated that sound with the treat. So even if they avoided it for a couple of years, it still wouldn't have deconditioned them from the response. And so it's really important to notice that they had to hear that bell and not give themselves the treat. They had to hear the bell and not give them the treat over and over and over again for them to stop salivating at the sound of the bell. They couldn't just ignore it. So we have a couple of options when we have these urges, these triggers, these bells for us. It's just this urge, right? The salivation response of the dog, same idea as like our urge, our desire for pornography. We have a couple options. We can react, which is just giving into it. So you feel this desire for porn, you're like, all right, let's do it. Yeah, I'm ready. We can resist, which is using our willpower, like, no, I'm feeling this urge, go away, go away, go away. It's like holding a beach ball underwater. When you hold a beach ball under the water, what does it want to do? It wants to pop up. It's the same when we resist our emotions. It's like holding them under the surface and then they just explode. That's why so many people go back and forth between resisting and reacting, resisting and reacting. I can hold it under the water for so long, but then I just give in and it comes up. I can willpower it away for so long, but then I just give in and give up. There's a third option, which is what we're going to practice in the program. It is allowing it to be there. And I'm going to go in a whole bunch of techniques on how to do this in a different video, but I just want you to understand these three options that we have when we feel this urge. Allowing it is just like Pavlov and his dog, hearing that bell and not giving ourselves the reward. And you can do it in a mindful manner. I like this balloon example here too. So I want you to think about the urge like a balloon, okay? You can just pop it, just react to it and pop it. You can resist it, which causes that balloon to expand, right? Think about how it feels in your body to resist and push down the urges. It feels like an expansive balloon. It feels like it gets more difficult. It feels like it gets harder, right? Or you can allow it, and allowing it really is allowing this balloon to deflate. This is what we want to go for. This is why I have you process 100 urges. This is in the urges milestone. This is a really huge milestone. If you can learn how to do this and do this 100 times, it'll completely change your life. This is simple. These ideas are simple, but that doesn't mean that they're easy. They're kind of tricky. They might take some time to practice and get used to. Like I said, I have a whole video with some techniques to help you learn to do this. But this is completely transformative. As you learn to do this, your life will completely transform. You'll learn how to become the person that you want to be. You'll learn how to allow these emotions and allow these urges and not just be reactive towards them.